If your eyeballs peeped the trailers for Runner 3 and you thought, this looks a heck of a lot like Runner 2, Future Legend of Rhythm Alien, but with an abundance of fancy new bells and whistles, you'd pretty much be right on the money. That's what Runner 3 is. It takes that finely tuned rhythmic foundation, which was already enhanced and modernized from the first entry in the series, and slathers on extra layers of interaction, flair, variety, and surrealness to achieve next level status. While it sounds like the ideal move on paper, and for the most part is, Runner 3 does stumble, and occasionally outright trips on its everything but the kitchen sink aspirations. But don't worry, there's still a good, often great game here. When describing Runner 3, or its predecessors, simply using a descriptor like Runner would be doing a disservice to its unique identity. First off, yes, outside of the unlockable retro-styled worlds, you're constantly propelled forward, with no control over your direction or speed. However, you have many ways of navigating the danger-filled landscape of branching paths thanks to various input methods. Think of it more as a 2.5D side-scrolling platformer that happens to keep you in motion than a run-of-the-mill runner. That description is more apt, and it's a description the game and the series deserves. Not only does the intrepid CommanderVideo and his crew have the abilities from past games, like jumping, sliding, and kicking, they can also double jump, ground pound, float greater distances, change paths at a fork in the road, and on rare occasions ride aerial vehicles, minecarts, cars, and other things. And you can still press a button to dance and earn extra points whenever you like. That is, if you're brave enough to cram a move or two in between impending threats to improve your leaderboard status. There's a lot to manage and master, and casual players that could mistake this with a typical runner might struggle to come to grips with all of it. That's not a slight against the game, that's merely a heads up. If there is a problem to address with any of these mechanics, it's the double jump. It functions as expected in most situations, but if your feet aren't fully planted on the ground and you attempt a rapid succession of normal jumps, you might unintentionally double jump, which throws off your rhythm and can lead to death. You must be very careful and mindful of this, but otherwise the moves and controls themselves are sound. Runner 3 contains 3 themed worlds: Foodland, Spookyland, and Machineland, each ending in a boss battle with levels designed around the aforementioned abilities. These levels are rife with obstacles and enemies of all kinds to dodge and/or kick, and they also feature other forms of interaction, such as springboards that launch you from the ground or from walls, portals that teleport you between the foreground and background, speed boost sections that can test your reaction time, and those alternate pathways, some of which can lead to hidden areas and items. Levels are somewhat too long, something that could have been corrected with an extra checkpoint, considering there's only one per level, but they're typically enjoyable nonetheless. As I alluded to earlier on, it's a lot of what you experienced in Runner 2, though there are now more layers on top, and that includes more shocks and surprises. Sadly, the shocks and surprises aren't entirely positive. Because the camera takes a more dynamic approach this time around, zooming in and out, rotating behind your character, and just shifting in general, cheap deaths are more common than before, and in these scenarios, the nearly spot-on precision found in prior games is compromised. It's no deal breaker, but it's the kind of style over substance decision that should have been omitted from some areas. And those camera-related deaths, those trip-ups, won't feel like your fault, and likely won't be your fault. That's never a good feeling when you're in the middle of a perfect run and approaching the finish line of a lengthy level, only to be returned to the start or checkpoint. But what else makes Runner 3 bigger and better? How about the optional hero quests that send you back to previous levels to collect items for NPCs, ultimately allowing you to unlock playable characters from past games, as well as returning narrator Charles Martinet and Yacht Club Games' Shovel Knight? What about the fact that you can replay each level in gem run mode, which automatically forces you onto new paths and into new areas? There are more collectibles in general this time too. Then there's a store with a whole heap of outfits, capes, and accessories to purchase for the misfit group of playable characters. I'm not going to go into all of the specifics, but if you're a completionist who relishes lots of busy work, you're going to stay engaged for a while, especially if leaderboards interest you. In addition to the standard worlds are 3 unlockable retro worlds, each comprised of 10 levels that allow you to move around at will and collect 5 coins before reaching the level's end. These are simply fine. They aren't great, they aren't bad, but they aren't special either. They're just something else to do, and they factor into the currency that allows you to purchase items from the shop. The sense of liberation provided by these retro levels and the off-generic level design take away from the beat-driven heart of the series that makes it so special. Again, they're here, they're moderately enjoyable, and they're harmless filler. But truthfully, I would have rather had more conventional worlds instead, because the 3 traditional worlds just don't quite feel like enough. The 4 bosses are sort of the same in terms of enjoyment. They're nice and intimidating and help to punctuate the culmination of each world and the game, but they're surprisingly easy. The final boss put up more of a fight than the rest, but I still defeated it quicker than I advanced through the more difficult levels leading up to that encounter. Their physical design and oddball presence certainly outweighs their gameplay impact, but in reality, this is mainly a quibble. When it comes to the 3 impossible levels in each world, no thanks. Listen, I'm all for a stern challenge. If you're familiar with my Wife Plays Bloodborne podcast or you follow me on Twitter, chances are you're aware of my proclivity to gravitate to difficult platformers. But these levels are so tough, unforgiving, and prolonged that I just haven't been able to extract pleasure from them. I haven't completed one yet. That's not to say I can't beat one, but I'm not sure I want to invest any more time in doing so. And that's saying something given that I've 100%ed the past 2 games in the series. Multiple times. And it would be irresponsible of me to round out this review without mentioning that the series' signature weirdness has been dialed to 11. It's often weird for the sake of being weird more than it strives to be clever, but its bizarre attitude is undoubtedly an asset, and it permeates every facet of the game. The music, even when it dares possess an air of familiarity, is catchy as hell and complements the action swimmingly. It's quirky, sprightly, and cleverly composed, there's no doubting that. And there's commonly an odd sense of tranquility that allows you to sort of melt into the scenery and the spectacle on screen. So, will fans of the Runner series adore Runner 3 as much as they did Runner 2? It's hard to say. Even if they're disappointed by certain aspects of the game, possibly things I've mentioned in this review, I believe most will be totally happy with their purchase. Other than the dynamic camera causing some problems and some control gripes, my only other noteworthy complaint is that there could stand to be more worlds. There's plenty to do, but I desired a grander sense of adventure overall. But the fact is that this remains another quality, joyous entry in an acclaimed series. It's not as finely tuned as its excellent immediate predecessor, sure, but I didn't cancel my physical pre-order despite already owning the game in digital form. And I'd say that's the perfect way to summarize how I feel about Runner 3.